Whether you're a fan of LEGO City or love a good modular build, you are in for a treat with Series 8 of the BrickLink Designer program, because in this video I'm going to be going through what I think are the very best buildings submitted by our fan designers. Now, it's true they can't do modulars anymore, not since the rule change a couple of seasons ago, but there are a couple that take it close to the wire and they do so really well. Now, don't forget, you only have until May 16th in order to vote. I'll put the link in the description down below. And of course, make sure to comment on what your favourites are. But I'm going to begin with one that is extremely weird and wacky. But if it wanted to stand out from the crowd, it certainly managed it. This is the Robotic Engineer's House, aka a cross between a shop and a house. And when I first saw this, I wasn't going to include it because I immediately thought that I would only have negative things to say, that I was going to rip it to pieces because it's just so out there. It's the kind of thing that I normally hate, okay? I was ready to loathe this build. And then I took the time to actually look slightly closer at it. And you know what? They say that there is a thin line between madness and genius, and I think this might just be managing to stay on the genius side of the line, because whilst it is simply an explosion of colour and a multitude of shapes, it somehow all seems to come together to create a really wacky and yet brilliant build. In terms of a LEGO City layout, my initial reaction was, well, this is never going to fit in. But then, do you know what? Put on the outskirts, the sort of mad inventors layer, it does that really well. So I had to include this just down to its sheer uniqueness. It's also been thought out pretty well in terms of how to gain access to the interior. All looks like it comes away pretty simply, modularized in that sense. And just to highlight for anybody who's unsure, because I see this in the comments sometimes, okay, modulars in terms of the icons line, people can't do now. They're not allowed in the BrickLink Designer program, but you can have something that is modularized and comes apart in terms of access. So this is absolutely fine. And I really like the configuration of it all. Now, the lights, of course, you wouldn't actually be able to have those in here, but as an aftermarket thing, it does look like it would improve it. However, it's not really necessary because I think this stands up just on its own 2 feet. And I'd really like to know your thoughts on this one, so get commenting because I feel it'll be really polarizing. Is it just too out there for you? Messy? Do you see no place for it? Or do you appreciate the just ultra quirky uniqueness and madness, really, that is this set? I've come down on the side of liking it. I think it's got a great sort of personality. And in terms of the actual build experience, there's so much going on here. I can't see how it wouldn't keep you entertained whilst you're putting in place every single brick. So definitely not the usual sort of thing that I would go for. But congrats to the designer. I think you've done something pretty cool there. And by the way, sometimes fan designers are kind enough to comment on my videos. So if they do, please make sure to reply to them. Give them some love for the designs that they've put forwards because they absolutely deserve it. Now, my next choice is this one, the clock tower, coming in with just under 2,000 pieces, and yet being pretty sizable for its trouble. This is around 2 feet tall. It would make for a fantastic centerpiece for a city setup, would really grab attention, that's for sure. And I really like the choice of pieces and also the color palette. So the parts that have been used, they are going together to make a really nice architectural shape to this. And then the colors all go together so well. It's very complementary in that regard. And also just the little scene down the bottom, that's a really nice added touch. So I think from the exterior, this would be a lovely addition to your city. Equally, of course, just as a standalone piece. Now, of course, it is always a little bit difficult with a tower because they're limited. You can only ever go in one direction and there's not a huge amount of space on the interior. Yet still, there's nice little references in there. There is a full staircase. That's important because it really annoys me sometimes when I see designers do, things with rooms up at the top or on the roof, but then there's no apparent way for our minifigures to get up there. So really nice that that's been included. So for this one overall, I think it's just great for building character. Looks good from the outside. Nice proposed minifigs. If you do just get the occasional standalone piece, it's definitely nice enough to be one. But if you do have a city setup, this would really be a standout attraction. Number 8 in my top 10 countdown is this, the Ye Ol' Red Barn. I say number 8, this isn't really in any specific order, other than I'm saving my favourite till last, but these are just generally my top 10 picks. So Ye Ol' Red Barn, this comes in at around 2,400 pieces. That puts it in at a good size point. So 2,500 is roughly the middle ground that BrickLink go with for the 5 winners. Can be a little either side, but generally an average of 2,500, so pretty good size. It's a fairly cartoonish looking build in a way, and yet I think that suits it down to the ground. It's one of those builds that just has a lot of fun and joy immediately as you look at it. At least I find that anyway. And I do like my sort of serious display sets, the ones that are very mature and have grand architecture and all the rest of it, but I also just like ones that make me smile or are kind of wacky in a way. The roof shaping that's done on here is totally ramshackle, rather silly, and at the same time pretty brilliant, I think. Again, the sort of choice of colours, this does look like your sort of old farmer's barn. The odd repair has had to be put on a little bit slapdash, but everything's working and it looks good. And I do love those extra references around the exterior, you know, the odd pallet sitting around, the wheel propped up against the side. That's just all adding to the story for me. This is a busy working farm. Oh, and of course, how could I forget the little rooster on the top? I think that's really fun as well. So the exterior, that is all great. And then, of course, we come to the inside. That is not short on details either. There's loads of accessories. There's also some fun playability too, so you can raise and lower the little hook there to take things in and out of the hayloft. It's also the place where the farmer can catch 40 winks under his hat. He's also got a white hat and a whip, so I'm not sure if he moonlights as Indiana Jones or possibly the Lone Ranger, but either way, he's also clearly a bit of a slob with just leaving pizza and cookies lying around, but why not? That just all adds to the fun of this set. And then, of course, we have the charming little tractor and the wagon with the hay. That's a super little addition. I'd love to have this. I want Lego to do more agricultural base sets just across the themes in general, and naturally, what a brilliant excuse to get a whole bunch of animals. Yes, please. So I think this has got just about the right aesthetic and could probably fare pretty well. I'll be very surprised, actually, if it doesn't attract quite a lot of votes. And just a reminder again, make sure to go on over and do so for your favourites. Moving on, though, in number 7 spot is this, the White Library. And it's another that took me by surprise at first, because I sort of thought, well, just having kind of all whites and off-whites mixed with black, it was going to be very bland looking. And yet, it isn't. It's got a wonderful splash of colour with the choice of reds. The street lamps also add in a lot too. And there's something quite striking about this. I really like it. And again, that's what I love about this program, because, you know, builds like this don't usually do anything for me. I'll still include them, of course. It's just that personally, they're not my cup of tea. And yet, fan designers in BrickLink and also Lego Ideas managed to come out with stuff which I find so refreshing and kind of gives me a new line of interest when it comes to Lego builds. And that's brilliant. It's what makes this program so great. I mean, true, of course, you can never get all of these, and many of them will just fall by the wayside, but at least you can appreciate looking at somebody's creation, which otherwise wouldn't normally interest you, and this has certainly taken me by surprise, and I think it's really good. So congratulations to the fan designer on that. I'm a miserable old git and hard to please, so you've done well there. I think the exterior detailing is all just perfect. It's not overdone, and yet we've got a nice, quite gothic-y architecture in places, but all blends quite nicely. Decent range of minifigures as well, all going about their business on the little sidewalk there, so that's cool. And then if we go around the back side, as it very much were, we can see the interior. And okay, it's very slim. I would have preferred if it could have been done so that it hinged open and we still had more depth on the inside for positioning some minifigs, but that's my only slight negative, because I think the way it looks is really cool. I love the choice of tiles just on the floor here and the little sort of carpet that's been done decoration wise. That's lovely. All the books, okay, they might not be the most fun things to put together, this section. A lot of fiddly small pieces to drop over the place. At least that's the sort of thing that I'd do with my fat fingers if this were made, but the finished result is a really pretty one. Love all the different colours. Size-wise, coming in at sub 2,400 pieces. Still perhaps a few too many, I fear, on a set like this. Probably my main bit of feedback would be that either this needs to sort of retain its size but be a little bit deeper so we can position the minifigures better, or alternative. Well, actually, no, do you know what? That's maybe unfair, because you can still stand them in there, and yes, if you've got the ladder to put them around in, actually that's fine, so I'll take that back. I just think that it perhaps is a little bit too large. That might be to its detriment, purely thinking about some of the other sets that it's going to have to go up against in that category. If it could just go slightly sub 2,000, I think that the designer would probably find that it stands a bit of a stronger chance. But then again, that is easier said than done. So for the most part, I think this offers a really nice option for display. You have it closed up and it's going to look great on all sides, but you've also got the ability to open it out as well. And I also really like how the colours on the inside are so vibrant and contrasting compared to the fairly muted exterior, but still with those nice bits of colour dotted throughout. Really interesting little submission, and I do like it a lot. Now though, we travel to the Lego version of Amsterdam, of course, Bricksterdam. And this is another that immediately puts a smile on my face. There's just lots of fun little features going on throughout, which is a really nice touch. But then also the lean to the buildings too. That's a good bit of design work right there. Very hustling and bustling, another that's just packed full of story. You've got loads of different characters being promoted here. The chef who's perhaps been baking some cookies or maybe even some mushrooms. The chap who's had a few too many of them. Maybe there's even a minifigure of Roxanne around somewhere who can pop a red light on up in one of the windows. Always a fun place to visit, you know. Lovely little feature of the boat down there as well, just moored up at the side. Extra little details like the rat down there and the watering can. I love builds like this that you can just spend quite a bit of time having a look through and finding extra fun details that the designers have popped, both inside and outside. Now, speaking of inside, plenty of room in here. Lots of space to position your minifigures. That's always a big bonus because it has that added playability as well as something that just looks good to have on show. It's also brilliant when you have multiple buildings. You don't just need to focus on one thing. That can sometimes be the drawback for some of these submissions because they only have one sort of key concept that the shop or home can be sort of focused on. But when you've got three, all with so many different levels like this, it just allows for so much more storytelling and playability. Now, of course, it is a big set, 3,780 odd pieces. That is going to put it up against some very stiff competition, not just in the buildings, but across the other sort of themes that you can submit for BrickLink Series 8. But I don't think that it needs to worry too much because this is a really strong design. For me, it really is a perfect blend of just loads of activity going on, but not so much that it's just overwhelming. And also a great example of contrasting colours, but not so vivid and out there that they feel clashy. These are fairly muted tones, and I think that they work pretty well. So that's another treat of a build. I really like that one. Now, the next is the Cargo Crate Plaza. This has been proposed before, and I'm not wanting to focus too much in this video on ones that have been proposed in the past. However, I make an exception here because there have been some additions and some changes. I thought this was a really cool concept when it was proposed before, and now with a bit of a different layout, some changes to the minifigs, I feel that it's even stronger. And what I really like about this one is the fact that it's so reconfigurable because, of course, being containers, you can just have it in a multitude of different layouts, and that's great for a city setup. So I won't go into as much depth for this one as I have for the others. You can always go back and watch my video for Series 7 on the building sets to get more of an in-depth look on this if you really want to. But really, I just feel that it's a very strong build, interesting design, quite different from other stuff that we've had, and would really add into a city setup world as a whole. And for that reason, still definitely deserving of being in my top 10 list. Moving to my next choice now, though, we have the Cabin Retreat, a nice little cabin in the woods design, but a little bit more, not cartoonish, but perhaps whimsical in its design, and I really like that. There's just something about this that captures the imagination and is quite adventurous. You know, I do think it would fit in potentially with other setups, but it's also just a pretty good standalone build. I love the picnic bench on the outside, although that is an absolutely massive burger. Look at the size of that burger. Good grief, this must be in America. No offense, but you're the only ones that have burgers that big. Good grief. Don't know how minifigs are going to manage that one. Mind you, I can't really talk. I should probably eat a few less of them myself. But it's just a nice, fun, tranquil little scene. You know, the exterior with the bits of flora and fauna, that's all nice. But then the way that the chimney's been designed, I really like that. The owl's going to get a bit of a hot bottom there if it doesn't move. And then the bright red of the roofs, I don't mind it. You know, I wouldn't usually like it when it's this sort of plain, but somehow I think it really does fit in. Maybe because it does have the offset of the sort of stonework of the chimney and then all the wood that's going on as well. It seems to work quite nicely. Then, of course, you can just remove it, and that reveals the little duck pond underneath. Not sure how the ducks will feel about having a log cabin dropped on them afterwards, but I suppose it allows for a little bit more play and display ability, so a nice added feature. And then we come to what is a pretty cool looking truck. I really like this. I know it's only, there's only the one image, that's a shame. I know it's only small, but certainly from these angles, it just looks like a good fun little build. Really nice colours, good shaping, enough to fit both minifigs in, so the right width as well. I think that's a lovely little add-on. Now, as far as also gaining access, the roof easily detaches and comes off, and you can play around with the minifigures on the inside that way too. And although space is a little bit cramped, once again, there is plenty enough for positioning those minifigs. Some really nice design details. I feel that it just has a nice bit of character. It's, okay. Well, we've got the rat and the cheese, and also what I believe to be a toilet, although we won't take too close a look at that. Always has to lower the tone, doesn't it? Just what I was saying, what a charming build it is. But there we go. I think there's been quite a few sort of outdoor camping, cabiny scenes proposed lately, and I haven't been a huge fan of them. This, on the other hand, I think just has the right amount of whimsy to be a really nice little design. Now, my last pick in terms of whimsy would have to be this, the sort of solar city. It's a bit too colourful and wacky to come near my top spot, but again, that's just personal opinion. I absolutely highlight it because I think that it's a really innovative and unique design. It's sort of a mixture between City and Ninjago in a way, and that's definitely not a bad blend. You could almost position this between the two and help interconnect them. And I guess most of all, this is the sort of set which perhaps isn't going to appeal to those who just want something that's outright for a displayability value, which, to be fair, I generally class myself more in, and that's perhaps why it isn't the usual sort of thing that I would go for. However, it is focused on being something that just captivates you, brings you into its colourful little world, and makes you want to get in there and not necessarily play with the minifigures. It's not a play set, but just be involved with them and move them around and have a bit of fun. At least that's what I get from this. Let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. But having this sort of futuristic style setup of your buildings with the solar farm and the fact that it's been done in shaping of flowers as well, I find all quite endearing. Now, size-wise for this one, it is 3,100 odd pieces, and therein lies its downfall, I feel. It's a really nice build in its own way, and I'm sure many people will be very happy to vote for it. I think it deserves it. It's the whole reason that I'm highlighting it, but I just don't feel that it stands a chance of actually winning out. It's too large in that respect, and going to have to compete against some real heavy hitters, whether it be in castle, other buildings, etc. So really cool. I love the shaping, actually. I think that is innovative, but in many ways, I feel like it just needs to be one sort of section and take off, I don't know, maybe 7, even 800 pieces to really condense it down. And then at that point, I think it has a strong enough character to actually really be a contender. And I mean that. I think it's that good. Even though it's not the sort of thing that I would normally go for, it's got such a cool vibe going for it. But those are my thoughts anyway. I really like it. Do think it could be smaller. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Either way, congrats to the fan designer. Pretty good going. Now that brings me on to one that is much more my sort of style. The Island, Our New Life. This has been proposed in a different guise previously. I think it might have even come under the Pirates theme before, but it has been extensively changed and altered and actually reduced in size. I mean, according to the designer, around 1,000 pieces taken off this, and that is a very impressive thing to do. So now this is 2,239. I think being able to achieve something of this sort of scale and level of detailing and retain the wonderful shaping and just character of this whilst stripping it back by 1,000 pieces is extraordinarily impressive, and it is very, very clever design, and I really want to commend that. Also, building it in person, not just doing it in renders, that is great. I love it when fan designers get in there, have the bricks in their hands and actually put it together for us so we can see it like this. It's an extra level of commitment. Not everybody can do it, so, you know, not giving those fan designers who don't a hard time. It's an expensive thing to do and also a time-consuming thing to do as well, but it really does add something to it. I appreciate it a lot. And this is one that just really embodies so much character. I think it's a really standout design, looks great. Despite taking the piece count down so much, it still has loads of extra features dotted around it. This isn't just, oh, a bare building that's been popped on an island. No, it still has a lot of thought and care and attention going into it. Kind of seems like the whole build has a sway to it in the way that its shaping's been put together. And I think sort of modernizing it like this is a really good move. It still has a kind of piratey vibe in a way, but also a sort of modern getaway. As for the inside, I think it has suffered slightly more from stripping it back so much in terms of piece count. I'm not such a fan of just exposed studs on the floor. I don't mind a few, but I'd still like, maybe the hint of a carpet, or perhaps in the upstairs areas, just some boards down to make it, look like floorboards, that sort of thing. However, I'm being pretty nitpicky there, because overall, this still has plenty of lovely little design features inside of it. And of course, we're talking about areas that you're only ever going to see a very small percentage of the time, and there's still lots of care and attention to detail that's gone into it. So pretty good compromise overall, I would say. And my final verdict would just be one of a very clever and excellent design. It fits in with plenty of other sets that have already been released whilst having its own unique identity. I love the way that it looks on the outside. Getting in at this sort of piece count, that has to be commended. And just overall, one that I feel, if it were picked and put through to crowdfunding, would be very deserving of that. Now, next up is going to be my number one pick. However, I do just want to give a shout out to some others which I haven't highlighted in this video so far. And the reason for that is these are all builds that have been proposed before. They're all fantastic builds which I think actually should be made. In fact, some of them, like this, for example, I'm really quite shocked hasn't been in the past. They would be very deserving of winning. However, the reason I haven't covered them in this is simply because I've done so quite extensively before in previous videos, and I don't feel that they've been changed enough to warrant me looking at them again. And that's not to say that they should be changed, because actually they are really good. I just don't want to make these videos repetitive by going over the same builds that have hardly been tweaked time and time again. And I'll hold my hands up and say maybe I've missed some really big changes. It's just when I'm looking at them, I can see small details that have been altered, but nothing major. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's not because I don't think these are great. I think they are. You should absolutely go and check them out. Again, link in the description below so you can go and have a look at all of these. Make sure to vote for your favorites. There are some really great ones on there. And if you are interested, I have covered these in detail in the previous BrickLink series. Okay, so there are some really good ones. Go and have a look at it, but that's why I haven't sort of given them their own individual featuring in this video. Unlike this, for example, which has been proposed in the past in a different guise, but has been massively changed. As I've said, 1,000-piece difference and quite significantly changed about. But there we go. That's the little explanation out of the way. Now it's time for my absolute favorite, and it's this: the Wood Brick Freight Depot. Any of you who have watched my channel before these BrickLink videos will know that I love trains. However, I couldn't really include this in my actual trains video because that was just focusing purely on the trains and other vehicles themselves. Here we have the freight depot, and it is just brilliant. I've loved the train engine shed, but personally, I actually prefer this even more. The first thing that caught my attention when I initially saw this was the crane that we have here. It's so clever to design something with so few and intricate pieces and yet to be able to have this incredible range of movement. That is really clever design, and the sort of craftsmanship that I feel takes this and elevates it. There are some brilliant fan designers in here, but when I see little things like this being done, stuff that you can't even expect in official Lego sets, and they're paid designers, I just really take my hat off. I think it is so clever, and it really adds to the community as a whole, because of course others will be able to see this and adopt certain techniques and just get better and better builds being proposed. So this isn't just a great looking set, it's one that has been very cleverly thought through. And if that's not to be commended, then I don't know what is. But just in terms of aesthetics as well, love the vintage lorry. Of course, the minifigure lineup and the little dog, that's great too. But, Yeah, this little vintage lorry, I think that's a lovely touch. Of course, the build itself, not only does it look great, you've also got added functionality in there. You know, I'm a big fan of just full-out train stations, but of course we have had quite a few of those now, and so going at a slightly different angle and designing something like this is a pretty brave move, it's a bold move, and I really feel it pays off. I also love on the inside as well how we've got quite a bit of room, and it's not all cramped in. You know, some of the designs that are put forward, they're fantastic in terms of having lots of detailing, but then it is all just sort of overloaded. Whereas with this, there's plenty of negative space as well, which is exactly what you would actually find in real life. You know, the floor wouldn't be chock full of absolutely everything. So we have open space, and yet then we have really nice details of the desk, the mailboxes just here to place the envelopes in, the storage shelving over here, just in one section because that's enough, and of course the bathroom. So some of the best design work for me is where designers know enough is enough. You don't need to do any more in order to capture something that looks brilliant, and because of that, this is coming in just under 2,300 pieces, and that makes it so strong to be able to get all of this detailing, wonderful size and scale, excellent functionality, etc., all in at that size range is just genius, quite frankly. So it's really no surprise it's my number one pick because it looks good, it plays good, it's very clever in the way it's put together. It's going to look great if you do have a city setup that you want to put this in with, or, you know, your other trains and train stations that you've got. So yeah, for me, this is my number one pick. But of course, what is yours? I've featured some really incredible builds in this video, referenced a few others. Let me know what your top pick is down in the comments. But that's it for this one. I'm of course featuring all the other themes in other videos, so please do subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already. Like the video and make sure to go and vote for your favorites. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, happy building.